This lesson for the Windows Passive Crossover Designer is to show the optional windows that you can open. This will be a fairly short one. There are just a few of them, but they can be very useful. You can actually design with just in the tabs, but these were added on some on request to make it easier. On the right, we have a list on the main tab, the System tab, of the different windows that can be opened. From top to bottom, we have the system graphs. Click on it once, brings it up. This is a graph that shows the system SPL and system impedance with various graph options that can be shown, such as the power response, driver phase, total phase. Turn the legend on and off if you want to give a little more room for the graph. Raw driver SPL, the summed responses on and off, the summed response on and off, and you can then import an overlay and turn that on and off with this overlay button. There's not one there now. And then you can save this current summed response to an overlay so that you could maybe test compare it against another design at some later point. All of these windows can be minimized to get them out of the way, and rather than go down and pull them up, if you're on the tab window or any of the ones that has the direct system graphs, you just click on it and it brings the same one right back up. The next one down is the list or is the instructions, set of instructions. This is a holdover from the original Passive Crossover Designer. I have changes in it for the current Windows Passive Crossover Designer in the front portion. Other portions of it are still a little bit more geared towards the original Passive Crossover Designer. This will need to be updated further at some point, or maybe it's a better help system built into it. But for now, this gives you a rough idea of what you can do inside the WinPCD. The next one may be one of the more useful ones. The system graph is probably one of the most useful. This second one may be as useful or more depending on your point of view. This is the window that originally was created so that you could print the circuits with the crossover values, which is very useful that way rather than having to just manually take the numbers off of the original tab sections. However, in this version, which is 1.2.0, I've added a change so that now you can use this window to actually control the design. There's not a lot of room in the screen to show it, but if I were to come in here and change any one of these values, in this case I'm looking at the tweeter tab, if I went back to the main window, went to the tweeter tab, we'd see that we have the changes corresponding here. So they track each other. So if you're over here, if you move it off the side, especially if you have multi-monitors or very large monitors I like to use, you can pull it off to the side, and then you can sit there and from within that tab section, or excuse me, within that schematic, you can actually directly modify the components from the components on the graph or on the window, rather than it being just a passive display of what's happening over here. Same with this one, you can minimize it, and if you bring it back up from the original screen, it will simply pop it back up, or if you close it, it'll just open a new one again. The next one was the original display, circuits display window, just to show what the circuits are in the original Passive Crossover Designer, and that were pretty much the same as the WinPCD, Windows Passive Crossover Designer. However, there was no tie between the numbers, the naming conventions. So there's the naming convention used in the original PCD is not a match at all. But at least it shows all the layouts possible, at least those that will be. We have the parallel tweeter, parallel mid-range, and parallel woofer. Those are all implemented and working. These other four are additional ones to be added if they do get added, or three. In this case, cascaded 2.5-way woofer, cascaded 2.5-way series parallel, and a series 2-way. You can print these out as well simply by double-clicking on the image and then print where you need, where you want to print it in a normal print option. It simply prints what you have displayed. So if you make the window smaller or make other changes, then you may see a change in the actual printout. This one I think maybe not. I know on the other one of the schematic overlays, if you change the size, the print gets changed that way as well. So you need to be careful if you're trying to print it out. This one, I believe, now that I think about it, you can just print it no matter the size. But this is just for display only. There's no update of any kind. Finally, we have the generic circuits window. This one, too big to fit on the screen as it is, but again, it's simply a passive display. It shows things like what a first order high pass looks like, first order low pass, second order, third order, fourth order, up to sixth order circuits. This is what you need to create that type of circuit. For a parallel two-way, there's a parallel three-way version, the series versions, shaping circuits, and the models tab that simply shows what the standard models are for raw drivers with the electrical analogous circuit and the original deal small acoustical analogous circuit. Again, all just for display only, but for those who are unfamiliar with it, it could be helpful. And that concludes this lesson.